sponsoring webinar, Winning Strategies for Nonprofit Compliance. And my name is Stephen Shattuck. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Bloomerang, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. And today I'm joined by Ann Davis-East. She's our guest today. Hey there, Ann. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
It's great for you to be here. And for those of you who don't know Ann, she is president of Davis-East Consulting, where she consults in a suite of services for nonprofit organizations, including establishment, dissolution, nonprofit compliance, United registration statements, and board development. She's authored numerous blogs and has presented seminars and webinars on board development, state charity registrations, and profit compliance requirements, which is what we'll be talking about today. So, Ann, thanks again for being here. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me, and welcome everyone. Just very quickly, I'm calling from the San Francisco Bay Area, where we're expected 98 degrees and nice, sunny, warm weather. So,
now you made us all feel jealous. I'm here in Indy, and it's 50 degrees and raining.
Okay. I want to make sure everybody can hear me. If you can just kind of punch in a quick in your chat box a yes or a no. That way I will know if all of you can hear.
Cool.
If you can never hear me, make sure that you type in and let Stephen know, and he will let me know if we're having some difficulty. So what I want to do is kind of get started. Today we're going to introduction. We're going to talk very briefly about operating a not-for-profit organization, and really mostly about kind of three duties that a board has. And then we're going to go into compliance issues, what you need, and then what will be ongoing filing. So we're going to jump to our board of directors. And as you can see, these boards obviously are from California and on their way out to surf later on. So three kind of top duties of a board are the duty of loyalty, a duty of care, and a duty of obedience. And when I talk about the duty of care, we're going to talk about that one first. I'm talking about using diligence, care, and skill with people who have a similar circumstance. So this is really about your board. Also, they're also going to make sure that they're familiar with the organization's finances and activities, and they participate in governance. So they attend those board meetings. They're actively engaged. They're also going to make sure that they read the materials and the minutes to make sure that they are up to date. We're going to review all their financial statements, and that includes, and we'll get down to it a little bit more, reading the 990 filing documents that your organization files every year. You're going to know what the written policies and controls are of the organization. And then we're going to get into duty of loyalty, and that is that they need to be aware of the conflict of interest policy, that they're, Stephen, are we having problems with people sending, still hearing me, or is it okay?
Ann, I can hear you just fine. Why don't you just keep going, and I'll try to work through some of those issues in the chat, okay?
Okay, great, thank you. They're also going to know that they're there for the organization and not for their personal gain. And then we're going to go into obedience, duty of obedience, to ensure that the organization complies with all applicable laws and has its own internal documents and policies. And always remember that one of your kind of issues is that all of your board minutes and your bylaws and your policies are open to the public. So anyone can come in and ask for those. So I have some clients who will keep their board notebook, their minute book at the secretary's home. It really needs to be at your organization, not in someone's home, someone's garage. Let's see. You're going to make sure that you give all of your board members your tax-exempt forms, your federal reports, your financial reports, anything that is really needed to keep them up to date. Okay, let's go on to our compliance issues. And so we have here Compliance Carl, and he's in charge of making sure everybody is taken care of. So the first thing in an issue is your filing with your Secretary of State. In majority of states, that is where you go to form your nonprofit at the state level. For example, here in California, you go to the Secretary of State. A nonprofit is considered a corporation, so you file it as a corporation. And that is really where you want to start. In some states, and again, probably in most states, you will have an annual filing, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The second one is your Attorney General. Your Attorney General is the one who receives all the complaints about nonprofits. And again, you will have to register with them. It's kind of a short, usually 2 to 3 page document you can pull up from the website. Then you're going to talk to what here in California is called the Franchise Tax Board, but in other states it's referred to as the Department of Revenue. And that's where you send off so you can become nonprofit and have tax-exempt status within the state. And that way you don't have to pay your taxes. Here in California, that means you exempt from an $800 yearly fee. And then make sure that you are in compliance with which is referred to as the Unified Solicitation. And what that is filing in all states so you can fundraise. And fundraise includes not just your annual appeal letter that you may send to somebody, but if you have a donate button on your website, that leads those states to know that you're fundraising within those states. So again, you might want to look and see if you have any out-of-state donors and how much you gain from them. It's not a complicated process to be registered in all the states. It's just very time-consuming with the paperwork. And again, you also have to learn if it's a 1-year or a 2-year rule. And also, in your compliance is that you need to be aware of your unrelated business tax. So if you sell anything that is not tied into your mission, an example would be a biotech lab here, sell snacks and sodas, water to their members. That is not part of their mission, so that is considered unrelated business tax, and they pay tax on that. So again, you might want to check your state and see what is unrelated business tax and what you need to do with that. And also employment. You have unemployment benefits that you may be responsible for. You may have to pay quarterly taxes or estimated taxes for your employees. So those are other things that you need to take care of. The last one that I would kind of really look into is that some states now and some districts, counties InState ask you to register with the police department, and that is to oversee any scamming that's going on. So if you send out appeal letters, you may need to register and get a permit number for those type of things. It sounds like a lot of paperwork and filing, but once you do it the first time and you start doing renewals, it just really falls into place, and everything is now becoming where you can do online, which is very helpful. Probably another thing that you need to look into is your fictitious name in your community, and if you need a business license. And depending on what your organization does, you may also fall under OSHA or environmental protection requirements. I'll use, again, the biotechnology here in my area. They do run experiments, so they have to have a permit from the environmental protection, and OSHA has to come in along with the fire department and make sure that they're set up in following all of their guidelines. So there we are. Next one is, this is just a little cartoon. This woman remembered that she donated, but she's not real sure how she has saved the children. It's not really a compliance, but really what it is just to remind you to always let your donor's money is being used. Sort of just a reminder, thank you, keep us in mind, and here's what your dollars went to. Stephen, do we have any questions right now?
Not yet, but I just encourage some folks to be thinking and sending those your way. So we'll see what comes in.
Okay, great. So here are your ongoing reporting requirements. And as I said, Secretary of State, a yearly or biannual filing. I'm going to use California as our examples going forward now. So every year or biannually, nonprofit will file what is called its information. That statement of information has a filing fee, of course. But what it's going to ask, have there been any changes? So has your registered agent, who is the person that receives all your information, all the state filing information's reminders, if somebody for some awful reason decides to sue you or makes a complaint to the Attorney General, that person is the person who receives all of those mailings. So, as I said, the statement of information is going to have asked for that, ask if there's any updates. It's going to ask if you have a new mailing address. It's going to ask for your board members and what the officers are. And I think that's pretty much what they asked for. With the state's Attorney General, again here in California, you file a return, and that return is going to ask pretty much the same thing about your board, change address, any of that. But it's also going to ask you what your activities were during the year to show that you are still doing what your original mission statement is. It may ask for some financials. Also here in California, prior to the 30th of August every year, you need to send in if you're going to be holding any type of raffle. Because, as you know, you need to file raffle reports prior and after you hold your raffle. So they'll ask for that. The Department of Revenue here in California is the Franchise Tax Board. they will ask to see mostly your financials. So again, you will be filing what is called the 199, which is our state tax return for a nonprofit, and we'll go from there. I also want to let you know that both with the Secretary, the Attorney General, and your Department of Revenue, donors can go to the website and search for your nonprofit, and they can find if you are in compliance. An example would be with the Secretary of State. There is an organization that has not filed their statement of information. When you pull it up, it shows that they are suspended, which means in California they cannot accept donations. With our Franchise Tax Board, you can also search to see if they're non-exempt. If they're exempt, if they're exempt, it'll show that, and also ask for a letter to show that. With the IRS, obviously, we all know it's our 990s that we need to constantly bring up to date. Luckily, that there are some. The 990 EZ should shortly be available online, so you can file that way. But it's really important that you keep up with IRS regulations. They are always changing the financial threshold of what type of 990 you need to file. They'll also be requiring new types of information. On the current 990, it will ask you, do you have a conflict of interest policy? They'll ask you if you have a whistleblower policy. They'll ask you if you have a document retention and destruction policy. And they'll ask you if you have a joint venture policy. So these are all things now that the IRS requires that nonprofits have. And a lot of it you can go straight to. So, Stephen, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we've got a few here. Looks like some of the tax things you were talking about got some ideas for questions here. Daniel in the chat room was wondering if you have a tax return and a 990 form. Could you maybe talk a little bit about what forms specifically you do need to send in?
Sure. With the IRS, Daniel, you file your 990, and that is your tax return. And some people will say it's not a typical tax return because you're exempt. It's more of an informational return. So depending on where you fall in your gross receipts will determine if it's a 990 EZ, which is the postcard, a 990N, or your full 990. And again, I would recommend going to the IRS website, which is irs.gov. When you get there, you can search for charities up in the search box, and then you can ask a question, and it also has a wealth of information. You can also hit select check, and you can put in your nonprofit, and it will tell you if you're still registered with the IRS. We've had some issues, as you know, that nonprofits have not filed their 990 returns for 3 consecutive years, and their status has been revoked. So this is kind of a good way to double check that you are all in compliance. Any other questions?
Yeah, they're starting to come in, Ann, which is great. Thanks to everyone for being a good sport about asking questions. One here from Chris. Chris says, if our nonprofit organization holds a golf outing to raise funds for our mission, do you have to pay taxes on what was raised, since golf isn't really part of their mission? What's the protocol there on those funds from a golf outing or a similar event?
Those are considered actually part of your mission. That's how you fundraise. So that's considered a special event. If you sell anything, again, that's not like your mugs or a hat or any of those things, that could be considered an unrelated business tax. I would suggest that you talk with your CPA, your accountant, or go directly to your Department of Revenue within your state and ask them. You also will need to check the IRS to make sure, and again, your accountant, CPA, that if you hold an auction, there on occasions, well, not on occasions, but anything that goes above the estimated value sometimes is considered income to the winner, so you may have to issue a form to them, and they would be responsible for paying taxes. One of the things that I could mention is that a lot of your state, like from your franchise tax board or your comptroller, any of those, give free workshops and seminars, both online and in person, around these accounting issues. So you may want to go to their websites and look up and see if there's one close by. If there isn't one, you can always have them come to you and, as a good community outreach, invite other nonprofits to come and hear what they have to say. So always remember that your state and the IRS is there to help you, not to just constantly get on you for not doing something right. Okay, next
Great.
question.
Yeah, you're on a roll. We got some good ones here, Ann. I hope you took your vitamins this morning.
Yeah.
Debbie here is asking about joint venture policies. You mentioned that a little earlier. Could you explain and talk a little bit more about what that is?
Yes, the joint venture policy would be if you joined, to say, McDonald's, and you were going to do a fundraiser with McDonald's. That's a joint venture activity, and so the policy would say how the funds are divided. Excuse me. Who is going to do the advertising? Who has? It just spells out what the partnership is going to be like. Again, Stephen, I don't know what the follow-up procedure is, but we can always send you a sample joint venture policy that you can offer to the participants.
Sure.
Which would be, and we can do the same with the whistleblower and the document destruction and retention.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll definitely share your contact info to everyone so they can get a hold of you if we miss anything for sure. All right, great.
Okay.
Here's one from Christine. Christine asks, is there a timeline when possibly all states will accept the URS form? Any insights on that? Maybe you could talk a little bit about what that form is for people who aren't aware.
Right. What that form is, again, is to allow you to fundraise in any state, specifically, mostly out of your state. So what we would recommend, there is a book that talks about fundraising registration in the 50 states. It's from Novo Press, which is very good. Every state has their own way. There's a unified, which some states take, and then other states you have to send in additional paperwork, which you have to pull up from their website. We do those. Our company does those filings for you, and then keeps you up to date on when you have to refile. Again, it's not a lot of work, just a very cumbersome getting all the materials together. And this NOAA book goes through each state and tells you what is needed, what they accept, and what they don't accept. Again, if you have a specific question or you're looking into doing a please get in touch with us and we can walk through with you.
Cool. All right, we've got one from Jackie here. Jackie's wondering if you miss an official deadline for state filing by 2 months, should you wait until next year, or should you try and go ahead and do it that year?
I would go ahead and file, even if you were 2 months. Again, here in California, which is my example, is if you don't file with the Secretary of State, say your statement of information, as I said, it's a $25 filing fee. The state will send you a letter and will inform you that your $25 filing fee is now a $250 fee. And the longer you don't bring it up to date, they will suspend you. So I would, even if, 2-3 months behind, I'd go ahead and send it in.
Okay. Yeah, send that in, Jackie. Don't wait. Great. We've got some more here, Ann, if you're up for it.
Sure.
Pamela was wondering, Pamela is using a fiscal agent until their 501c3 is finalized, and she's wondering if she holds a raffle, is she going to need permits if it's held in conjunction with someone else's event? So it looks like they're partnering with someone else until their 501c3 is finalized. Is she going to still need the permits there?
She is still going to need the permits, and I would suggest that she speak with her fiscal agent to see if the fiscal agent is the one who wants to file the permit or if they want her organization to.
Okay, great. We got another about 9. Oh, go ahead.
One more thing is, with your fiscal agent, we highly recommend that you have a contract or an agreement with them that, again, spells out what they will be responsible for and what you will be responsible for. And that goes from their administration fees. Do they, divide the bank interest or whatever through between the two of you? But also how long they're going to be your fiscal agent. A lot of organizations use it in their interim, but then they find that they're fundraising. They raise quite a bit of dollars, but they're really not getting those dollars back to them. So I would just really make sure that everything is written out.
Cool, great advice. Well, Chris here has another question about 990s. Chris says he knows the Form 990 asks about whether you have assorted policies, but does the 990EZ also ask about those?
No.
Follow-up question is, what if you don't have those policies written up? What should you do with the EZ form?
The EZ form, what it is it's really just asking if you have those policies. And I don't believe you're asked that on the EZ form. I think you're asked it on the long form. But it's highly recommended that the board look into having those policies. It's good governance. It's a best practice. And in the long run, it'll save a lot of aggravation if somebody comes and asks for a document and you just destroyed it, but you were supposed to keep it for 7 years. So I would just go ahead and get those policies in place.
Cool, great. We've got a question here from Debbie, and Debbie was wondering about auction items purchased over their value. Is there a resource you could share or any advice about how to deal with that issue and what those are?
I do, and if Kelly, is it Kelly that asked that question? I'm sorry.
It was Debbie.
No, Debbie, I'm sorry. If Debbie wants to get in touch with us, we're happy to send her some resources that will explain how auction items are handled. But
okay, cool.
generally, the rule is that if it goes above what the item was valued at, it's considered income. And also another little hint is whoever donates the auction item, they do the value of the item you do.
Right.
So,
okay, great.
So if she wants to give it, send us a quick email. We're happy to send her some stuff.
Cool. Kelly here was wondering what the pros and cons are of hiring a company to do the paperwork for you. Do you have any tips on choosing a vendor for that or outsourcing that in general?
We get that question all the time. The first thing is we always say if you're starting a new nonprofit, the IRS estimates that it takes 200 hours to fill out the paperwork for Form 1023. So if you have 200 hours of your time to fill that out, that's wonderful. If not, sending it out to someone else who has done quite a few of them and knows the ins and outs and has direct contact with the IRS to ask for information. That is well worth the expense. And actually for anything, your state filings are fairly simple. I would say anything that deals with the IRS, if it's a unified registration, any of those type of things, or you're initially registering within another state, I would really look at outsourcing. They understand what the paperwork is, what's entailed, know where to go to get the information. And again, we always recommend that you take whatever your hourly rate is times how many hours it's going to take you to fill it out. If it's within reason, go ahead and do it, and if you have time, otherwise, talk to somebody. And we do all sorts of ways of filing forms for people. So again, it's just like hiring another consultant. If you bring in a consultant to do strategic planning for your organization, you use the same criteria.
A question that kind of dovetails out of that. She's wondering, is there a difference between hiring an in-state company versus an out-of-state company to do all that for you? Does it matter? Are there any special considerations you use there? Do you have to work with someone in-state?
No, we have clients in all 50 states, and we also have clients in Mexico and Canada. So, we work with everyone. I would say if you're going to hire someone to come in and raise funds for you, and they're out of state, that fundraiser needs to be registered in their home state, but they may also have to be registered in your state. So you may want to if that fundraiser is registered.
Great. We've got a question here from Tom, a question about the 990 EZ form. What are the cutoff requirements required for staying within that form? I think he's asking there about the differences.
Right. So when you're first filing, they just changed it. So I can't answer that question off the top of my head. I'm going to have my assistant pull that information, and we'll get right back to it.
Okay, cool. Well, Ann, I think we exhausted all the comments in the chat room, and I know we went a little over time. We said we'd do about a half hour. So I'm going to give people a little bit of a last chance to send any questions. While we do that, Ann, I'm going to put your contact info on the screen here. Could you talk a little bit about how folks can get in touch with you and what kind of things you offer?
Sure. Well, you can give us a call. Again, we're on the West Coast, and you will see our phone number up on the screen. You can also send me an email at daviseastconsulting@gmail.com. We are also on Facebook. We have a business page, Davis East Consulting, so please go ahead and like the page, and we will we post new things every single day. And what Davis East does is we work with nonprofits in all their filing documents. So we help you establish your nonprofit. If for some reason you have to dissolve, we will do your dissolution paperwork. We also write your bylaws. We'll help update your bylaws. We write all of the policies that I spoke about. We also do ethical training to make sure that you're working ethically with your organization and your board. So anything that has to do with compliance, to keep you legal, that is what we do. We do partner with a couple of attorneys and CPA accountants, so we're kept abreast with things that are coming out from their end, and if we have any legal issues, we'll go to them. So that's what we do. We're here for anything that you need. If you have just a quick question, please feel free to get in touch with us. We're happy to help you and answer that question. And so thank you, and thank you all for the questions, and we look forward to hearing from you.
You got time for a couple more, Ann?
I'm sorry?
Ann, do you have time for a couple more questions?
Of course I do. I have a couple more.
Okay. Yeah, we got a couple here from Daniel, and I want to answer them for him since he was a good sport about sending us some other questions. Daniel was wondering, how long does it take to get a response to a 1023 application form? Looks like he's maybe waiting on that, and not sure how long that'll take.
Daniel, that's always a great question. According to our contact, it can be anywhere up to 12 months to 18 months. But they do want you to know that you can fundraise in good faith. As soon as your paperwork was filed and you received a letter that said they have received it, and which generally takes maybe 90 days at the most. You just need sure that you let your donors and your corporate partners know that it's pending, and if there's any problems that you were not accepted, that you will let them know. But in the meantime, the IRS will let you fundraise in good faith. And I will say, Daniel, the other thing is that the IRS has 3 piles for their paperwork that comes in. One pile is that they have absolutely every single thing that is required from the addition on your 1023 financial statements with corrections. That goes through at a quicker pace, obviously, than if you're missing anything. So if at any time, if you're doing a 1023 and you would like us to review it, we're happy to review that and let you know if you're missing anything. We always want you to be in that first pile.
Right. Elaine was wondering if you know how long it takes for them to respond once they've called. So once they call and ask questions, how long does it usually take from that standpoint? Do you have any idea there?
I don't have any idea. Again, it goes into a pile and is assigned. What you can do is you can go to the IRS website and you can search to see where your application is in the process, and that should give her a little bit more idea of how long it will take.
Okay, cool. Jackie here was wondering, what do nonprofits usually get audited for? What are common reasons that that a nonprofit gets audited for?
If the financials increase dramatically from one year to another, if you have Is the compensation to your board members or your executive director, again, it increases or is incredibly high? If you are the board chair, secretary, and treasurer, so those are kind of the big ones, kind of the red flags that they'll look for. And they'll also, the 990 now is more of a storytelling. So they'll look at your activities, and again, they'll see if it's aligned with your mission.
Okay. Cool. One question here from Ira. Ira is wondering if an organization has no income and no expenses during the tax year after they incorporated, do they have to report any expenses and payments prior to the incorporation?
Not as a nonprofit. You would have to check with your state to see if they considered you a for-profit corporation. And if that was the case, then you may have back taxes as a corporation.
Okay.
But if you continue not to have expenses or income as a nonprofit, you still should file your 990N, which is the postcard, because the IRS will look at you. You're considered a nonprofit. You didn't file anything for 2 years, and they'll revoke your status.
Okay. Daniel was wondering, what do you have to do to update or amend your bylaws? Are there any compliance things that you need to worry about there with regards to updating your bylaws?
No, the bylaws is your internal piece on how you're going to govern. So you can change your bylaws, amend your bylaws at any time. What you really follow is Robert's Rules of Order on how to make motions and those type of things. So you should always look at your bylaws at least every 3 years to see if that's still how you want to run your business, your organization, the board. A lot of bylaws don't reflect all this new technology that we have of smartphones and electronic voting and those kinds of things. So you may want to look and update your bylaws to reflect that.
Okay, great. Well, Mary had a question that had to do with that. Mary's organization sounds like they're going to change their entire mission and not just the bylaws. Is there anything to do there, or is that just kind of fall into the same boat?
It falls under the same boat, but I would also, when you do your 990 and all your other your state filings, that you inform them of your new mission. And your mission was also part of your articles of incorporation, so you may want to check to see what the state requires you to do for that.
Okay, great. Well, I know you've answered a lot of questions, and you were definitely a good sport about it, Ann. Is it a fair statement to say that folks can contact you with any further questions if we didn't get to them? Would that be okay?
Yes, they certainly can, and we look forward to their questions.
Well, good. I know this was a lot of fun. It's been a while since we did a mostly Q&A webinar, but I think that you gave great answers to everyone's questions. So thanks for hanging out with us for about an hour and sharing all your knowledge. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, well, thank you, Stephen, and I look forward to it. I'm looking forward to taking some of your upcoming topics as well.
Yeah. And just so everyone knows, we do these webinars once a week. They're totally free to register, totally educational. We've got some good ones coming up. We've got a great one coming up in June. Kibby LaRue Miller is going to join us to talk about infographics and videos. Definitely check that one out. I kind of highlighted that one because it's kind of an exciting topic. We're going to talk about getting your board to fundraise a little later on this month. So check out our webinar page. Register for anything that you might find interesting there. Again, totally free and totally educational. So check those out. Just so everyone knows, I will be sending out a full recording of today's presentation along with Anne's slides a little later on this afternoon. So look for those to hit your inbox in just a few hours here. So with that, I'll let you all get back to your day, maybe get to lunch. So thanks again for hanging out with us, and we will talk to you next week. So bye now.